Hey, welcome back. Eric Arnold speaking here. Day after Super Tuesday, Wednesday, the 6th of March, here in the Politics Barn. Haven't had an episode in a while. I think what we're going to try to do is do shorter episodes, more of them. So there's so much to talk about. Let's get going. What happened last night? I don't know anything really happened last night, you know? Everybody expected Donald Trump to run the field, and for the most part he did, with the exception of losing in Vermont. And I don't think anybody other than the leftist media gives a shit about that. Nikki Haley will finally drop out here this morning. Word is she will not endorse Donald Trump at this juncture. At this point, I don't know it really matters other than the fact that Nikki Haley stops running negative advertising against Donald Trump, which is what we want. She's hurt the team. She had a chance to really set herself up pretty well, I think, in Republican politics, say 2 months ago, around the time that Ron DeSantis dropped out. You know, DeSantis did the honorable thing, said, I really want to be president. I think I would be a better president than Donald Trump. I happen to agree. But he was not going to win. He just simply wasn't going to win. And he did not want to help Joe Biden win because we're Republicans and we want Joe Biden to lose, of course, because our team has better ideas and will run this country in a much better fashion than the Democrats have for the past number of years. So he dropped out. Haley, of course, nope. She basically went full Kasich. And you never want to go full Kasich. Who's Kasich? John Kasich. He's the former governor of Ohio. He ran for president in 2016. Just a very accomplished politician if you look at his very impressive resume. And this guy just could not believe that very impressive politician's resume wasn't popular with the voters. He could not believe it. I cannot believe I'm losing to this guy, Donald Trump. How is this possible? And he just stayed in the race and stayed in the race. And he had no chance, but he just stayed in the race. And all the while, hurting Donald Trump's chances of winning the general election. Now, he's been relegated to the backwaters of God knows where, and no one listens to him anymore because no one likes him. And that's what Haley has done to herself. Not that we really care about Nikki Haley. We just want her to stop hurting the team. Now, as far as an endorsement goes, I don't know it really matters. I don't know there are a lot of Haley disciples out there. In other words, the people voting for Haley are voting against Trump. They're not voting for Haley. So if Haley comes out and says, I love me some Donald Trump, woo, let's beat Joe Biden. All right, it wouldn't be exactly like that, but you get the gist of it. It would be, hey, I'm better than he is, but the voters don't agree. Got to respect their wishes. We all agree that we're better, Trump better than Biden. Let's all get together, group hug, and win one for the team, blah, blah. A lot of her voters aren't going to come over anyway. A lot of her voters are Democrats. They vote for Haley in the primary, and even if she had won the GOP nomination, they weren't going to vote for her in the general election. They would vote for Biden. Why? They're Democrats. That's why. So, goodbye, Nikki Haley. I don't know you were all that important. It's nice to stop taking the incoming friendly fire. So, good. The people that are on her team, come on in for the win. Come on. You gotta see. I mean, don't you see, Trump is a better president than Joe Biden. I mean, I would like to hear the argument as to how the Trump years were worse than the Biden years. I'd like to hear that argument because I think it's pretty clear that the Trump years were better. Prices were lower, the economy was better, we weren't involved in wars, and now here Biden has Oh, and by the way, not just anybody could walk into this country and do whatever the hell they want, kill joggers and any other mayhem like Biden has allowed. So for you never Trump Republicans like my friend Jerry, come on over to the side of the Lord. Come into the big win. Come on in for the big win. Come on, we need you. Come on, you can help us. You absolutely can help us. So we just got to hope that happens. So where are we with this? Trump is maintaining a small but consistent lead in the polls. Now here's how I read these polls. All these polls are registered voters. Now in the poli-sci lingo, you don't look for that sort of a poll. It's less accurate than a likely voter sample. And the likely voter samples almost always skew a few points more towards the Republicans in that the low information, maybe I'll vote, maybe I won't type of voter seems to skew more Democrat. You weed them out, that leaves you more of a Republican pool, if you will. The way I'm reading these polls is I just ignore that. In other words, I used to think that was significant, but you have to counterbalance that with the fact that the Democrats are going to move the number 5 points in their favor just through their get out the vote efforts. And you can read that any way you want, whether that be them legitimately getting every last Democrat on the face of the earth to the polls or to a mailbox or whatever, or just faking votes or cheating, what have you. 5 points they're going to get over the Republicans because Republicans just aren't very organized. Just not. It's blame whoever you want, Trump, the people that were running the party, what have you. But so I think the two cancel out. In other words, likely voters, that's for the Republicans, but then you subtract that back for the Democrats' get out the vote efforts. So I'm just taking these polls as they're coming out as this is probably what it is. Any kind of registered vote poll or registered voter poll, which is mostly what they are right now. That's what I'm looking at. Trump, the New York Times poll that came out had Trump up 4 with registered voters. And that seems to have everybody shook up in that, the New York Times is obviously a leftist organization. And some numbers from that poll, 72% of the people polled think Biden's too old. 72%. That's significant. That's significant. 43% of Democrats want somebody else to run. That's significant. But then I think the one that's most significant of all is the Ronald Reagan question. And by that, I mean, at the conclusion of the 1980 debate with Jimmy Carter, the only debate that Carter would agree to, Reagan asked, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And if the answer is you're not, well, then you need to vote for me. And people thought about it and they said, yep, you're right. We're not better off. And it was a Reagan landslide. They asked help or hurt. They said Biden has been in office now, however many years. Have his policies helped you or have they hurt you? 20% said that his policies have helped them. 44% say they have hurt us. Then they used the same question on Trump. Now, for those of you that have poor memories, Donald Trump was president at one point. The Democrats want you to forget that. They want you to think he just dropped out of Nazi Germany and just goose-stepped his way onto the scene. He was president for 4 years, and I don't think a whole lot of political dissidents were jailed or rights stripped away. It just didn't happen. So but they don't want to talk about that. At any rate, the question is, did the Trump policies help or hurt you? 42% said they helped. 27% said they hurt. So those numbers are almost reversed. And that means Trump is clearly, hands down, winning the Reagan question, the question that put Reagan in the White House in a landslide. So Trump is in a pretty good place right now. He has never polled this well. In 2 cycles he's run for president, 16, 20. This is the 3rd cycle. He's never had polling numbers this good. What do you mean? He's always leading in the polls. No, those are polls amongst his own party. Polls against the Democrats, whether it be Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden in 2020, he trailed. He always trailed. He was always behind. Now, he outperformed those polls ultimately in the general election, but didn't change the fact that he never led in those polls. He's leading now. That's never happened before. So I think Trump is in a pretty solid spot right now as far as popularity goes, his polling numbers. Joe Biden, old. I mean, that press conference he gave after the Hur report was released was just gold, just absolute gold. You could just replay that on a loop and just, for a political ad, just endlessly replay that, and just, it's devastating. He is just totally, you can't think, he can't give an answer. He's mixing up his words. Why? Because he's demented. The guy is not all there. He doesn't deserve to be president anymore. But, you know, he won't get out because his wife won't let him, basically. So, lawfare, which is what the Democrats are hanging their hat on. And it is fun now watching as some of this is not going their way and watching these people just get all angry. It's hilarious. I mean, they're giving the game away, really, in that we all knew that this was just blatant, I'm trying to steal the election crap, bringing these charges that have never been brought before and never will be again, very likely. And they're bringing them simply because Donald Trump's running for president. These charges would never have been brought if Donald Trump didn't run for president. But I think it was Weissman, Andrew Weissman, he of the Mueller report nonsense, a rabid Marxist, was on MSNBC, and he was lamenting that he thinks that the J6 case is probably over because the Supreme Court has stepped in with their immunity review, that the Supreme Court does want to review whether a president has immunity for their official acts while in office. And it's an obvious review that should and is being done. But listening to these leftists who aren't getting their way stamp their feet is really kind of funny, in that if it was a leftist president who was having his official acts reviewed, then they'd be, you know, completely backwards, like the total hypocrites they are. But now, of course, it's Donald Trump that's getting the benefit of the review by the Supreme Court. Now they're all mad. But Weissman kind of gave the game away in that he's saying, well, there's just no way we're going to be able to get this tried before the election. It's like, what do you mean? I don't understand. The trial will still happen, right? Donald Trump is clearly guilty, you've told me. You will simply hold the trial after the election or next year, right? Because you're going to beat him in the election. Your ideas are so much better than his and ours, and you're so much more popular. So next year, after he's lost, then you can try him at your leisure and place him in jail for the rest of his natural life, which is what you guys think and believe that should happen. So why are you mad? Well, obviously they're mad because they won't be able to affect the course of the election, and they are worried that their ideas aren't that good and people don't like their ideas and they might lose. So, it's as obvious as the nose on your face that these charges are being brought simply to try to steal the election. One of my favorite podcasts to listen to, Megyn Kelly, most recent episode, she's talking about the J6 case, the Jack Smith nonsense in the District of Columbia, and they're all upset because, well, I should say they're all upset. She has one lawyer on there who is apparently a leftist. I believe he's a district of attorney from Palm County, Florida, and he, outed himself now as a leftist, bemoaning the fact that the Supreme Court is reviewing this immunity stuff. And they're talking about the fact that the district or the DOJ, Smith, whoever, may go ahead and just hold the trial anyway. In other words, it was, how to say this, it was conventional wisdom that after a certain point in the election calendar, perhaps the conventions maybe, that you just couldn't do this. You just could not have these trials, that it's just blatantly unfair, and you can't do it. Now they're basically saying, we have to do it. Justice demands, blah, blah, blah. As I've said so many times, and I'll say it again, these cases have nothing to do with the law. Absolutely nothing. And any kind of attorney you see talking on the television or the radio or the computer telling you that Trump has violated section blah, 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 and justice demands that he be held, they're lying to you, they're lying to you. It has nothing to do with that. All it has to do with is them trying to make him more popular or unpopular. They're trying to scare you from voting for him. That's all it is. That's their calculus, that if we drag this guy into court, we'll make him more unpopular, we'll make ourselves, by comparison, more popular, and we'll win. We don't care how we win, we just need to win. They put him on trial in, say, September or October, and force him to be in this courtroom while Joe Biden and his minions are out traipsing the battleground states, campaigning. People might not like that. It might blow up in their face. It will be so obvious that they're trying to steal the election at that point that it may just upset enough independents, never Trumpers, are somewhat true to their name in that no matter what happens, no matter what the Democrats do to destroy normal American institutions, they just seem to, we don't care if the whole country burns down as long as Donald Trump's not in charge. So I don't know if any of those people will come over, but some independents definitely might look at that and go, this is not right. There is no way this should be going on. I mean, one thing Trump could do if they actually tried to do that and demand that he stand in the courtroom from weeks on end while they run these idiotic show charges in their star chamber against him. What if he just doesn't show up? What if he just says, screw you, I'm not coming there. I'm just going to go campaign for president like I have every right to do and go screw. I'd like to see that, frankly. I think that would be fantastic. I guess they would, I guess Joe Biden would call out the United States Marshals after his opponent. I'd like to see the optics of that, of Joe Biden calling out the United States Marshals to go arrest Donald Trump while he's giving a campaign speech. I think that would be pretty cool, and I think that would help us win the election. So, we'll see how it goes. The Democrats, I think, are getting nervous in that their lawfare is definitely starting to fray around the edges in ways that maybe they, or even I, didn't think it was going to happen. I know one thing the Democrats did not count on that I tell you people all the time, and if this ever gets written somewhere, I want credit for it. Things always take longer than you think they're going to take. always. If you think it's going to take 10 minutes to do task over there, it's going to take 20. Things always take longer than you think it's going to take. So these Democrats who could have brought these charges like right after January 6th, but of course there were no charges to be brought because they weren't sure this guy was going to run for president, so they didn't bother. Then when he announced for president, then suddenly all of a sudden it became important. So had they brought these charges right away, if they were really upset about what the actions Trump took, that's what they would have done. They'd be probably in the courtroom right now. But of course, the charges have nothing to do with anything other than Donald Trump's running for president against Joe Biden. So, what else? Perhaps that's it. Yeah, we got a few minutes here. I did want to say one thing about the immunity, in that it is, these lawyers right now are just, I guess, I don't know, all patting themselves on the back saying that the Supreme Court is going to throw out Donald Trump's immunity arguments. I don't know about that. Clearly, to me, there's an obvious argument for presidential immunity. You can't just have the president be subject to his political enemies the day after he leaves office. Now, this really hasn't been an issue because I think for the most part throughout American history, perhaps with the exception of the 20 years leading up to the Civil War, both parties have been pretty close to each other. We're all Americans. I think the tax rate should be here. You think it should be there. Should the currency be backed in gold? Oh, I want it to be backed in silver. These are major arguing points in the past in American history. Now, the one that blew the whole thing up, I think black people should be slaves. I think black people should be free. Okay, that's a pretty big difference there, and that needed to be fought out because there was a right answer and there was a wrong answer. But for the most part, the differences have been pretty close. Well, now we're getting back into one of those Civil War periods where the Democrat Party has just gone full communist. I mean, there's just no reconciling with, I want to take away your ability to speak freely. I want to take away your ability to own a gun. I want to, et cetera, et cetera. Your ability to freely assemble. There's no negotiating with that. So, and basically them just saying, I'm going to use the court system, of which I control because 2/3 of lawyers are Democrats. I'm going to use the court system to achieve what I can't achieve at the ballot box. These are all totally anti-American ideals, and you can't negotiate with any of that. So having the president with, I would say, certainly a Republican president subject to leftist courts after he leaves office, that's problematic. Now, perhaps the Democrats might be able to fairly, if they wanted to think about it, see that we could do the same thing to them. That maybe if Donald Trump gets back there into office, maybe all of a sudden Barack Obama is on trial because it was his CIA, apparently, from what I'm reading. We all knew this. I mean, I'm just surprised it's in the news right now, that he directed the CIA to spy on the Trump campaign. Hell, we knew this. I'm just shocked that it's actually in the news. So maybe we should put Barack Obama on trial for that. Trump could certainly do it if Obama would not have immunity from that sort of thing, which is what Trump is arguing. One of my favorite movies is a movie called Failsafe from 1964 with Henry Fonda. Who else famous is in that movie? I'm thinking of all the bit actors. Walter Matthau. Walter Matthau and Henry Fonda. I'll write that here, fail-safe. And in the fail-safe movie, a bomber group, a nuclear bomber group, gets loose, gets the wrong code message, and is told to go bomb Moscow. It's a technical malfunction. Nobody wants to bomb Moscow. But the 6 nuclear planes, whatever they are, B-52s, or I think they use a fictional type airplane in the movie, a Vindicator. I don't know there is such a thing, but they get the go code, and they're not supposed to. So these guys take off towards Moscow, and now it's, holy shit, what did we do? And they're trying to get a hold of these guys, and the Russians are jamming the communications because the Russians think it's a real attack. And then it turns out they're talking on the telephone to the Russians, telling them it's a mistake, and they're trying to help the Russians shoot them down so they don't bomb Moscow. And they're calling the chief pilot on the radio saying, stop! But of course, he's been programmed not to take any kind of verbal communications because they can be faked by the Russians. So he's ignoring it. It's a whole deal. They can't stop him. So finally, they get through to Moscow and blow up Moscow. Boom! And so Henry Fonda's the president of the United States. That's his character. And his solution to that is the Russians are going, okay, you know, you just blew up our capital. Oh, a mistake, huh? Okay, I did that. A hell of a mistake. That's a hell of a mistake. And I don't know. I think we're going to have to retaliate here. I think we're going to have to lay waste to you just because, you know, we just have to. We just have to. And Henry Fonda's like, whoa, okay. What if we match your destruction with our destruction? And he orders one of his own planes to drop a nuclear bomb on New York City. And that's how the movie ends, is New York City being annihilated in a nuclear blast. So an eye for an eye, and the movie ends. It doesn't really, it kind of leaves unsaid that the Russians accept this. I think it basically, gives you that impression that the Russians go, all right, you want to nuke your own city? Okay, I guess we could sell that. Maybe I'll just tell my own people that I lied to anyway. I'm a Russian premier and I'm a communist, so I just lied to them. We'll just tell them we blew up New York. And they'll say, okay, well then that's fair. They blew up our main city, we blew up their main city, okay, we'll call it even. All right, so that's the movie. Now, should Henry Fonda be held for trial after he leaves office? Should he be held for murder? Should he be tried and executed as a war criminal? He bombed his own city. I mean, should he be? I mean, can he be? You know, to me, that's a good a case about presidential immunity. That was his solution to prevent all-out nuclear war. And I don't know if it was a terrible solution, you know, in that the Russians are going to hit back with everything they got and everything's gone in a full-out nuclear exchange. Henry Fonda sacrifices one of his cities to prevent all-out nuclear war. But if a president does not have immunity over his actions when he's in office, I mean, maybe that might have been part of his calculus as he's sitting there talking on the phone to the premier going, man, I mean, I could just sacrifice one of my cities and that might satisfy the Russians and then that'll save everybody. But then that might kill me. They might literally kill me. I don't know, maybe it's worth it, you know, to just fight it out. I'll be okay. I mean, they have bunkers for me. I'll be able to go into some bunker somewhere and I'll survive. Millions of other people are going to be killed, but I mean, tens and hundreds of millions, but fuck them, you know, right? I'm going to be okay. You know, maybe that would have entered into his calculus if he knew that he was going to be hauled before a jury after he leaves office and they're going to say, you murdered millions of New Yorkers. You are sentenced to the gas chamber on such and such a date. So I think that's a good example of how presidential immunity is a real thing, despite all these leftist lawyers running around going, no, we get to try. And part of why they're doing this, they would never, ever make these arguments if the Republicans controlled the judiciary. If 2/3 of courts in America were controlled by Republicans, there's no way in the world Democrat lawyers would be running around right now going, immunity, there is no such thing as immunity. We can hold you to put you on trial anywhere we choose. No. The only reason they're doing it is because they control the court system. So they know that's a weapon that they can use. Why do you think you call it lawfare? It's a term that means warfare. It's warfare by the means of the law. In a way, it really has nothing, and as I've said again and again, it has nothing to do with the law. It's politics by use of the court system. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with the law. So the law is just a bunch of fancy words that they can use to get you into the court system. The thing is, usually, there's a bunch of other fancy words in there somewhere that mean the opposite of what they're doing. But they like to ignore those fancy words. They only use the fancy words that help them achieve their aims. All right. I just threw that out there as to basically try to give you an example of what immunity is and why it's a thing, and why we actually should think about whether we give or don't give our United States presidents some kind of cover for the official acts that they take, especially when we're trying to agitate our way into World War III with Russia as we speak. So this is a thing. It is a real issue, which should be soberly debated by adults, which I guess probably leaves out the vast majority of the Democrat Party. Hey, we'll talk again. I'm Eric Arnold. I believe in free speech, and we'll see you later.